Usually when we think about a sanctuary, like a place of worship, there is this fundamental expectation of unconditional refuge.
Right, like an open embrace.
Exactly. You're hurting, you're desperate, you walk through those doors, and the world outside just, melts away.
Yeah, that is definitely the ideal, certainly. I mean, it's meant to be the ultimate safe haven, a space where all those worldly labels and social hierarchies just drop off the moment you step over the threshold.
But what happens when the very institution that's meant to offer salvation actually commodifies your desperation, and
Oh,
while simultaneously barring the door?
oh man.
Like,
Yeah.
what happens when those heavy wooden doors of the sanctuary are just slammed shut and padlocked against the people who honestly need them the most?
Well, then you aren't really looking at a sanctuary anymore, are you? You're looking at a system of, like, institutional gatekeeping. It's a
Yeah.
spiritual landscape that is brutally exclusive.
Right. And welcome to another deep dive. Before we go any further, I want to give a very special welcome to everyone tuning in from the Simplified Summary Channel audience.
Yes. Welcome, everyone.
We are absolutely thrilled to have you exploring with us today. To kick things off and, to help the channel continue to grow, I want to humbly ask you to hit that subscribe button right now.
Definitely do that.
Drop a like on this video, and please share your valuable comment below as we navigate today's topic. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support is literally what makes these explorations possible.
It truly does. And today we are heading into some incredibly profound and, frankly, challenging territory.
We really are. We're looking closely at the heartbreaking and just socially piercing short story called Mandir.
Which translates to the temple.
Right, The Temple.
Yeah.
Written by the legendary Hindi author Munshi Premchand. And this piece is taken from his celebrated Mansarovar collection, specifically Part 5.
Yeah, and just to give everyone a bit of grounding here, Munshi Premchand is often considered the pioneer of modern Hindi Urdu social fiction.
He's a huge figure.
Absolutely massive. He was writing in the early 20th century, and he actively pulled Indian literature away from romanticized myths and fairy tales.
Right, he brought it into reality.
Exactly. He dragged it right into the gritty, uncomfortable reality of social realism.
And just to be totally clear from the jump, as we examine this story, we are exploring the social critiques and historical realities exactly as Premchand laid them out in his original text.
Right. We aren't taking sides here.
No, not at all. We're just acting as your guides through his specific literary lens, imparting the ideas contained in this classic piece of literature.
And our focus today is to really deconstruct a central, agonizing question posed by the text, like, how do institutions maintain power by weaponizing a person's most vulnerable moments?
Such a heavy question.
It is, and we're going to examine this through the devastating narrative of a mother named Sukhiya. We'll see how Premchand contrasts the absolute purity of maternal love against the cruel hypocrisy of rigid social systems and caste discrimination.
Yeah, and Premchand just plunges us straight into Sukhiya's reality right from page 1, and it is bleak.
Very.
She is a poor, widowed woman belonging to the marginalized Chamar caste. Her entire universe, like the only thing keeping her tethered to this earth, is her surviving child, a little boy named Giyavon.
And the historical and sociological context here is just vital for you to grasp.
Right.
Because in the rigid caste hierarchy of that era, being a chamar meant you were relegated to the very bottom of the social ladder.
Right.
You were considered, quote unquote, untouchable by the upper castes.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't just like a social label, it was systemic, economic, and psychological subjugation.
Every aspect of her life was controlled.
Exactly. Every aspect of Sukhiya's life is dictated by boundaries she's absolutely not allowed to cross.
And on top of that intense societal isolation, she's dealing with profound personal trauma. The text notes she has already lost 2 children to illness.
Oh, it's so sad.
Or, as Premchand tragically phrases it, she handed them over to the lap of the Ganges. She's lost her husband, too. Little Giyavon is her final anchor.
Which makes his current condition all the more terrifying. Giyavon has been suffering from a severe fever for 3 days. He's lying unresponsive on a bed of straw.
A bed of straw.
Yeah. Premchand is building an environment of absolute scarcity here. Sukhiya has no medical resources, no social support net, and no money.
She's operating in that state of sleep-deprived, starving delirium that really only a terrified parent can understand.
Exactly. And then a shift happens. She has a dream.
Right.
Her late husband appears and tells her that if she worships at the local Thakurji temple, the boy will be cured.
Now, I want to pause here for a second because I think it's easy to read this as just a convenient plot device, but isn't this dream essentially a psychological lifeline for her?
That is a highly perceptive way to look at it, actually. The dream isn't just some mystical occurrence, right? It's the manifestation of her desperate need for agency.
Because she has none otherwise.
Right. When you are entirely powerless, the mind will fabricate a path to action. And Premchand actually opens the story with this sweeping philosophical statement before we even see Sukhiya act.
Oh, right, about maternal love.
Yes, he writes that in a world full of illusions, maternal love is the only indestructible truth.
It's such a striking opening.
It's very deliberate. By establishing maternal love as the only eternal pure truth, Premchand anchors the reader's empathy. He forces you to recognize the raw, undeniable purity of Sukhiya's devotion.
Like he wants you to see her fundamental humanity first.
Exactly, before he introduces the societal structures that refuse to see it.
And he makes her so incredibly relatable through these small, agonizing details. Like right before she leaves for the temple, Giyavon wakes up for a fleeting moment, just burning with fever.
That scene is so hard to read.
It really is.
Yeah.
Sukhiya asks if he wants some medicinal khichdi, but he innocently begs her for just a bit of jaggery instead. He literally says, "I fall at your feet, mother. Give me a little jaggery."
And she knows the jaggery might aggravate his fever, but she just cannot resist his pleading. I mean, what mother could? She gives it to him, and he gobbles it down while she looks away.
It's such a tender, raw moment. It's that illusion of control, giving your sick child the one tiny thing that brings them a second of joy when you can't actually cure them.
Yeah.
Like a drowning person who suddenly sees a lifeline. She doesn't care about the cost. She just acts. So, driven by this desperate hope, she pawns her only valuable possession.
Her silver bangles.
Right, to buy batash, those sugar sweets, and other offerings. Then she steps out of the isolation of her home and into the public sphere.
And this transition from the private sanctuary of a mother's love to the public arena of societal rules is really where the core conflict begins. Sukhiya arrives at the temple courtyard carrying her pawn bangle offerings, and she faces a literal and metaphorical wall.
She is immediately barred from entering.
Instantly. She doesn't even make it to the inner sanctum. The priest and the so-called devotees who are finishing their evening prayers, they just stop her at the gates.
And their reasoning is entirely based on the caste system.
Entirely. Because she is a chamar, they claim her mere presence, let alone her touch, will pollute the deity.
The language that the devotees use is fascinating from a sociological perspective, too. Like, they treat her arrival as an apocalyptic threat.
Oh, completely. One man actually declares that if Chamarsar start worshipping Thakurji, the earth will sink into the underworld.
Like, they frame her attempt to pray as the beginning of the end of the world.
It's absurd.
It is. I found myself getting deeply frustrated reading this sequence because the logic is staggeringly flawed. And what's great is Sukhiya actually pushes back.
She does.
She doesn't just cower. She uses this brilliant, undeniable logic. She literally asks them, did God not create the Chamars? Does the Chamar have a different God?
Which is such a direct challenge to the theological framework they use to justify their dominance. I mean, if God is the creator of all, how can a creation pollute the creator?
Doesn't make any sense.
Right. But Premchand highlights the dripping irony of the scene by focusing on the physical appearance of the priest.
Oh, this detail was so telling.
Yeah, the text explicitly describes the priest as having a thick layer of dirt accumulated on his hands and feet, despite his rigid, daily purity rituals of bathing in cold water.
Wow.
And I really view this as a powerful metaphor for his internal moral corruption. He's obsessed with external ritual purity, but his soul is entirely stained.
Okay, hold on. I want to challenge that interpretation slightly. Is it purely a metaphor? Or is Premchand pointing out a very literal, glaring hypocrisy?
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. These upper caste men claim ultimate spiritual purity, but are physically unhygienic. Meanwhile, the marginalized classes, the so-called untouchables like Sukhiya, are likely the ones forced to do the actual physical cleaning and labor in these villages.
Oh, wow. That is a phenomenal point. You were totally right to push back on that. It isn't just a literary metaphor. It's a scathing observation of lived reality.
Right.
Yeah. The concept of ritual purity in this context has completely divorced itself from actual cleanliness or moral goodness. It's become nothing more than a mechanism for social segregation.
Which brings us to the mechanics of spiritual extortion. Because the priest refuses to let her cross the threshold, but he doesn't just send her away.
No, of course not.
He sees a terrified mother, and instead of feeling compassion, He sees a business opportunity.
He leverages her panic. It's sickening. He tells her that he possesses a magical jantar, an amulet, that will cure the child.
Naturally.
And he claims it's highly valuable, but offers to sell it to her for 1 rupee.
Which is, he's acting like a corrupt toll booth operator for divine grace. She only has 2 rupees from pawning her bangles in the first place.
And she already spent some on the sweets.
Exactly. And he takes a whole rupee for a useless piece of cloth. Like, why does she agree to this? Why doesn't she just pray from the outside or walk away?
Well, because the system has systematically conditioned her to believe she has no direct access to the divine. The priest has established a monopoly on salvation, essentially.
Right.
By gatekeeping the temple, he forces marginalized people to rely on his intermediaries, like the amulet, which he can price at whatever the market of desperation will bear.
He commodifies her despair.
Exactly. He ensures the temple remains pure from her presence, but, he is perfectly happy to absorb her money.
It is a brutal economic reality disguised as religious practice. So Sukhiya takes the amulet, she goes home, ties it around Giyavon's neck, and waits.
But tragically, it doesn't work.
No. The amulet fails completely. The child's fever climbs even higher.
And as the night progresses, the situation just becomes critical.
Yeah.
By 3:00 a.m., Giyavon's extremities are turning cold.
And Sukhiya realizes she made a terrible mistake trusting the priest's transaction over her own devotion. She decides she should have gone in and placed her child directly at the feet of the deity, regardless of the consequences.
She hits her breaking point.
Yeah. Driven by pure maternal instinct, she wraps her dying child in a blanket, grabs her prayer plate, and steps out into the freezing, pitch-black night.
And this midnight journey is, it's one of the most evocative and psychologically complex sequences in the narrative. To understand the magnitude of her bravery here, we really have to examine the psychological hurdles she's overcoming.
The details are just incredibly vivid. She's walking a path that goes right past a pond where a washerman recently drowned.
Yes.
And she has to navigate past a bamboo grove that the entire village believes is infested with witches.
And the absolute silence of the rural night is only broken by the howling of jackals.
It's just terrifying.
Totally terrifying. And we have to remember her context, She is a woman of her time, deeply entrenched in the folklore and superstitions of her village. To her, these supernatural threats are not fairy tales. They are imminent, lethal dangers.
Right. She believes in them entirely.
Yes. She is utterly terrified of the dark, the roaming spirits, the wild animals.
She even admits to herself that under normal circumstances, not even for 100,000 rupees would she step foot outside at this hour.
Exactly.
But the impending loss of her child completely overrides her deeply ingrained conditioning. It's fascinating. It's a profound study in human courage. She uses her faith as a psychological shield, literally chanting to herself as she walks through the terror.
And this massive buildup makes her arrival at the temple all the more crushing.
Ah!
Because she finally reaches the courtyard, only to find the heavy wooden doors locked.
Locked tight.
A massive padlock sits there, physically sealing the deity away from her.
It's the ultimate visual representation of societal rejection. The doors aren't just closed, they are locked against her.
But her reaction here is what shifts the story from, a tragedy of circumstance to a narrative of defiance. She doesn't turn back.
She doesn't.
She does not collapse in defeat. She searches the edge of the courtyard, finds a heavy brick, and begins to violently smash the padlock.
She just wails on it. The text notes that she doesn't even know where the physical strength came from. In just a few massive blows, both the lock and the brick shatter into pieces.
It's an incredible image.
It really is. And let's look closer at the mechanics of this moment, because breaking the lock isn't just about accessing a building, is it?
Not at all. It is a deeply symbolic destruction of the status quo. That padlock represents the rigid, unforgiving social structures that have locked her out of grace, out of community, and out of survival itself.
Wow.
By shattering it with her bare hands, she is temporarily breaking the monopoly the upper castes hold over the divine.
But of course, every action against the system invites a reaction. The sound of the shattering lock echoes through the silent village. It wakes up the priest. And what is his immediate response? He starts screaming, "Thief! Thief!"
Which perfectly illustrates his worldview, if you think about it. He doesn't assume someone is experiencing a spiritual crisis. He assumes someone is stealing property.
Exactly.
To him, the temple is an economic asset to be guarded, not a spiritual haven to be shared.
So a mob of villagers quickly gathers, carrying lanterns and armed with sticks. They find Sukhiya standing on the veranda, and she tries to de-escalate. She pleads with them, explaining she isn't a thief, she just came to offer prayers for her dying son, and she hasn't even stepped inside the sanctum yet.
And this is where we see the terrifying sociology of the mob mentality. Logic just vanishes entirely.
Poof, gone.
The priest whips the crowd into a frenzy, declaring that she has corrupted the temple just by being on the veranda. The crowd's priority is instantly aligned with protecting the institution and their in-group status, rather than, assessing the human reality of a mother holding a sick child.
It escalates into a devastating climax. Men start physically assaulting her. They're literally kicking and punching a woman holding a baby.
It's horrifying.
It is. Sukhiya tries desperately to shield Giyavon, taking the blows herself. Then, a muscular Thakur violently shoves her.
And the physical disparity there is immense, and the impact is just catastrophic.
The sick child is jolted from her arms. He hits the stone ground, and he dies instantly.
It is a breathless, horrifying moment that really forces the reader to confront the lethal endpoint of these discriminatory ideologies.
Sukhiya falls to the ground. She scrambles to pick Giyavon up, letting out a single, piercing scream. She touches his forehead, feeling the life already gone from his body. She slowly stands up, and here is the detail that is so profoundly unsettling. She doesn't cry.
No tears. The grief has entirely bypassed the mechanism of tears. It is transmuted into something much more primal.
Her eyes burn like red-hot coals. Her face flushes with absolute fury. She clenches her fists, grinds her teeth, and delivers a blistering curse to the crowd that just murdered her son.
And this final speech is the philosophical core of the story. It is Premchand's ultimate indictment of the society he's documenting.
I really want to examine the specific analogy she uses because it mathematically dismantles their entire belief system. She screams at them, demanding to know why they are standing so far away after taking her child's life.
Yeah.
And then she says, "My touch polluted the kurji. The philosopher's stone turns iron into gold. The stone itself doesn't turn into iron. How could my touch pollute God? Didn't the same God create me without pollution?"
The invocation of the Paras, the philosopher's stone, is just a masterstroke of logic.
It completely destroys their theological framework.
Totally. Because if God is the ultimate purity, the ultimate philosopher's stone, then coming into contact with a sinner should purify the sinner. The sinner cannot possibly pollute God.
Right.
Because if a human can pollute the creator of the universe with a mere touch, well, then that God is weaker than the human.
Precisely. She exposes the terrifying truth. They aren't protecting God. They are protecting their own social dominance. And if we observe how the villagers react to this undeniable logic, it is incredibly telling.
Very. The text describes them standing there with their heads bowed down, resembling stone statues. The courtyard is dead silent.
They are completely shamed into silence. Her words strip away the veil of religious justification and expose them to themselves as simple murderers.
But the realization is entirely futile at this point. I mean, the damage is irreversible. The child is dead.
Yeah.
And this is where Premchand forces the listener to confront a harsh reality about institutional dogmas. When rules and traditions are followed blindly, completely divorced from human empathy, they become mechanisms of violence.
That's the real tragedy.
Yeah. The rules that were designed to supposedly organize their spiritual lives ended up actively extinguishing a physical life.
And it extinguishes Sukhiya's life as well, because after delivering that devastating logical curse, she looks down at her child's face one last time. She cries out, "Oh, my precious boy," collapses to the ground, and dies of a broken heart.
Just shattering.
Her body simply gives out under the weight of the injustice and the grief.
And the narrative concludes with a highly unusual shift in perspective. Premchand actually steps out of his role as the omniscient narrator to address Sukhiya directly.
He talks right to her.
Yes. He writes, "Mother, you are divine. Your devotion, your faith, your belief is rare, even for the gods to attain."
So let's analyze the impact of that closing statement. Premchand is actively elevating the marginalized, untouchable mother above the very deities housed in the temple.
It's a massive statement.
It is. He is asserting that true divinity, true unpolluted purity resided in Sukhiya's desperate sacrificial love all along. It was never behind those locked wooden doors.
No.
It wasn't in the daily cold water baths of the corrupt priest. It was in the mother braving the haunted darkness to save her son.
It is a complete ideological inversion. He takes what society deemed polluted and reveals it as holy, while taking what society deemed holy and exposing it as thoroughly corrupt.
It really forces you to pause and take a hard look at the structures operating around us today. And as we bring this deep dive to a close, tracing the journey from a mother's innocent hope to a devastating critique of systemic discrimination, we want you to reflect on the broader implications.
Definitely.
While Mandir is firmly rooted in the historical and cultural context of early 20th century India, it asks a fundamentally universal question. At what point do our bureaucratic rules, our societal norms, or our institutional traditions end up overriding our basic humanity?
It asks us to constantly evaluate our own systems. When does protecting the sanctity of an institution become more important than protecting the welfare of a human being?
That is the core of it. And I want to leave you with something to carry with you after you finish listening today. Think back to the concept of the sanctuary we discussed at the very beginning.
Right.
If a sacred space is truly meant to represent ultimate purity and boundless unconditional love, wouldn't the actual true pollution of that space be the lack of compassion shown by the very people guarding its doors?
That is a critical question for any era.
A huge, warm thank you for joining us on this exploration. To our amazing Simplified Summary community, your engagement is the engine that keeps these vital literary deep dives going.
We appreciate you all so much.
We really do. So please, take a second right now, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and most importantly, drop a comment below. We want to hear your thoughts on Sukhiya's story, the mechanics of societal gatekeeping, and that brilliant philosopher's stone analogy. We genuinely read and appreciate your insights. Until next time, keep questioning the locks on the doors around you.